Okay, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio. Daishian Miller here from Warrior Concepts. James in the wings. I apologize to those of you who've been sitting and waiting and trying to figure things out. So are we. I don't know if the storms in Texas are doing anything to us. James, am I coming through okay now? Yes? Okay, awesome. So, we fired things up the first time and lost most of our feeds. So, anyway, had to rebuild things. So hopefully folks will get the message and jump on and we'll keep on going. All right. So I think that was the universe's way of kind of like helping us segue into things because this one's all about being lost. Anyway, what I want to talk about is something that I cover in my book. I wrote this book. Jesus Christ, when did I write that book, James? It was way before 2009, I think. It was called Fight Smarter, Not Harder. It was actually based on a bunch of, it spun out into other articles and things like that. But lots of little nuggets in these things. This is another one of those books where people, like, they read it, they liked it, and they were like, hey, do you ever think about rewriting this for Ninjutsu only people? Is my mic muted? No? Oh, shit. I'm getting all kinds of messages on my screen here. If this suddenly goes dead because some server blew up in Egypt, whatever, nothing to the Egyptians, you'll know why. So anyway, lots of little things, but apparently some people need like warm and fuzzy Japanese words before they take anything seriously. And I feel sorry for them. But anyway, so one of the concepts that I discussed in the book was based on different conversations that I've had with people along the way about self-defense, and there's like three really common, right? There are these big problems, but they're really common themes that keep popping up that people end up, expressing to me that kind of all lead to the same place, and that place is feeling lost at different points relative to this thing we call self-defense, self-protection, survival, whatever. Okay, so anyway, that's the main theme. Got that for you, and a bunch of other things as we kind of run through this one. But let's go ahead and get started. We'll run the intro, and I'll see you as soon as we get back. Question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world. All right, and we're back. All right, so some people have gotten the message. I apologize to those of you who were on promptly, and I don't know, we weren't. James popped on and said, only one of the streams is getting anything, and apparently there was nobody on that one. So I don't know what the hell happened. We built this thing, and everything was working until we went to sign on. But I was having several conversations with people on the phone today, one just recently, just before we shot the videos for this week's training for those of you who are in the Mod 3 or the Dominate and Win program. And they're in Texas, and that hurricane made landfall, obviously, and then a bunch. Where are they? Somewhere around Houston now. And so major phone glitches. Phones kept getting disconnected. We had a little bit of an internet glitch at the beginning of the 5 o'clock Q&A class for those folks that are in those programs. So weird stuff. Anyway, hopefully we can get through this and everything will be fine. All right. Anyway, again, welcome. Episode, what is this? 217? Episode 217. So we're just trucking right along. Like I said, James is in the wings, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I haven't seen his tail, but he tells me it's bushy. Anyway, all right. Anyway, all right. So In this episode, we're going to take a look at something, again, for those of you who are on for the intro, you heard this, you're going to have to listen through it again, because some folks weren't on then. So in my book, Fight Smarter, Not Harder, there's this theme that I talk about. And the way the story is kind of framed, and it's not, it takes a couple of paragraphs for me to describe something that has just gone on for years. And that is probably 90% of the people that I talk to about self-defense. And they're at different stages, right? They're different stages of the paradigm. They all tell me something. It's a concern, it's a fear, it's, this kind of thing related to self-defense, but it all kind of points in the same direction, and that direction is a sense of feeling lost. Now, it's not something that ego admits to up front, right? It happens, or they're afraid it's going to happen, right, at certain times. So it's not necessarily that they're feeling lost when they tell me. It's not necessarily that they're telling me about this lost thing, and they might not even use the term lost, right? But there's a concern about something that there's no other better way to describe it. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about these three different points in time, how they relate to training, what kind of training is important if we're going to make sure that we don't end up feeling like any one of these 90%ers at these given points, right? And for those who like to do it yourself and don't think that they need a teacher, they don't want a teacher, they don't trust any goddamn teachers. And besides that, you know how many freaking videos are on YouTube? I can learn this shit by myself, right? Okay, so that's fine, right? So for the do-it-yourselfers, I have a 4-point framework that if you run it, you will make sure that in your self-training and self-education, you will learn everything you need to learn about self-defense, and you won't need a goddamn teacher. How about that, right? So, cool, right? But then again, I think it's funny that a lot of these folks that don't need teachers, they're still going to YouTube to learn stuff from a teacher. They're still going on webcasts to learn, right? What they're not doing is tying themselves to a teacher. Or as one guy posted on one of my videos when I was talking about a teacher-student relationship, he posted, I don't need a goddamn teacher. They're just overpaid, glorified hacks as far as I'm concerned. Fantastic. Okay. Hope you never run into anybody. Hope this person, if he's ever listening, hope he never runs into anybody who knows something in an area that he himself never bumped into and needed to learn. Because one of the big benefits of having a teacher is you're getting somebody who has not only learned things that you want to know, because that's where most people think, right? It's a Western definition, right? This person knows stuff I need to learn, or I need to know to get this degree, to get this grade, to get this skill, whatever, right? But the big thing with a teacher is that unless they're just regurgitating the same shit everybody else is, you're not paying them or hanging out with them to learn the same shit you can learn in, I don't know, what, dozens, hundreds, thousands of videos on YouTube showing the exact same damn technique, slight variation, whatever, right? The benefit is the years that they have processed this and thought about it. You're getting this information that has run through their experience, right? Especially if you tie yourself to a teacher that, or connect yourself to a teacher who has actual real world experience, and not just in a fight, right? But actually using the stuff that they're teaching in a real world scenario. Okay, and a lot of my personal students, a lot of my inner circle guys, have heard me say this, but we talk about different types of teachers with the same information, and it's not that they're all not valuable in their own right, but they're all teaching the same skills and same techniques, but the way the teaching is happening may not be the same, or the way they lead someone through the learning process may not be the same, right? And so, again, any one of these is better than none, but what level can they get you to? Okay? And here's what I mean. We could have an instructor who has a whatever level of black belt in this or any art, right? And they've learned the lessons. They've absolutely learned the lessons, right? They passed the test, they got their rank, they know their shite, right? But this person has never been in an actual physical altercation outside of maybe sparring in the dojo or in a sport type context or whatever. That they haven't been in a oh shit survival kind of situation. Okay. They can still teach you the moves. Okay. But if we compare or contrast that to an instructor who knows the same stuff, is the same rank, everything's the same across the board, but this particular teacher has actually been attacked or been in fights or whatever. They know what it's like inside that bubble. Okay. And I don't mean a rule-laden bubble. All right. For anybody that's still unsure at 217 episodes in, my focus is always on self-defense and personal development. And I don't mean self-defense like most people do. I mean survival, self-protection, right? Dealing with somebody who's trying to not only beat you, but break you, maim you, kill you, that kind of thing. We're not getting the prize is not a trophy, a belt, or bragging rights, right? The trophy is you get to breathe for another day. You get to go home and tuck your kids or your grandkids into bed. You get to tell your significant other that you love them again. That kind of thing, right? That's not the same, okay? But anyway, guy number 2, he knows all this stuff that you're trying to learn, right? And he's been in fights. However, he hasn't ever used the stuff that he's teaching you, right? This martial art or the self-defense system or whatever. He hasn't used those techniques per se in those fights. Win or lose, he doesn't use them. He's been in the fight and he has fight experience. So he may not know all the cool moves. He may not know the names. He may whatever, right? But he knows what it's like inside that bubble. And this guy can help you with like knowing what to look for, how to train, what you're going to have to deal with, what it's like to be in that under that influence of that adrenal response, right? And how that fucks up your brain, right? In that moment, okay? All that clarity and bullshit sitting around a table or the locker room or whatever. Somebody jumps me, man, I'll kick his, okay? All that shit just goes away, and the logic inside that bubble is very different, okay? So it's easy to see the difference between instructor A and instructor B. They both have the techniques and whatever that they needed to get that level black belt, and they're teaching and they're passing on stuff and whatnot. But one has street survival experience. The other one, if they've been in fights, they're like dojo sparring and stuff like that, right? Okay, if it was a requirement. Okay, but let's contrast even number 2 or B, right? The one with fight experience against the instructor who has learned all the stuff, has been in fights or been attacked, and has actually used the stuff that they're teaching in that real world situation. Right? We have 3 very different teachers, but they all have the same rank. They've all learned the same techniques. My dog sees another dog outside, so you may hear him injecting himself into the podcast. He's a tiny little thing, but he's got a big heart.
Anyway, kind of like me. Anyway, so I don't have fuzzy ears though. At least I don't think so. James, do I have fuzzy ears? I can't see him from where I am. Anyway, all right. So again, we have these different conditions, right? So he'll stop here in a minute. The other dog has to go back in the house. Anyway, all right. So well, let's do this. This is a good time to just kind of check in on folks. James, who do we have on? Who do I need to say hi to? I think some folks are just now getting the message that like we had to shut down and restart things. A glitch in the world. Who do we have? Soda Stream.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. It's not
Can you hear
showing
me?
up. I can.
Well, your video and audio is not in sync, but it's okay. You'll be like Saturday morning Kung Fu Theater.
It's completely frozen on my end right now.
Like me. I feel so bad for the folks that are on audio only because they're completely missing all the entertainment. But they're not here for the entertainment; they're here for the education. So, anyway, all right, who's on? Oh, the numbers are climbing. Look at that.
As of right now, all I see signed in is Jeffrey and Jared.
Jeffrey and
Jared.
Oh, okay. Well, they were on a live Zoom training class earlier too. So awesome. All right. Hopefully, I'm not that out of sync. Am I out of sync? No.
Everything's completely frozen for me.
Well, in that case, that would explain why you're all out of sync. All right. So can we get somebody to give us a sound check that's actually like on the live side of things? Right. Just type in the chat or on your platform, whatever you're on, and let us know that you can at least hear me. That'd be awesome. Testicular, 1, 2, 3. No, maybe. If you have 3 testiculars, may I suggest a medical study?
Oh, there, it just caught up. And then Victor's on.
Victor? Holy shit. Didn't get called into work for once. Or that a reason, at work.
Terrence.
Did we get a sound check yet? Hopefully they can hear us. Guys, this is not the time to be doing what a bunch of jackwagons do to us on a regular basis, where they send us a tech support email because they've got a problem getting access to things. We send them a solution or we fix it, or James does, right? And then we never hear back. We have to assume that it got fixed. There's no thank you. There's no F you. There's no nothing, right? And we're martial artists, for God's sake. Where the hell is the etiquette, right? Not you guys, because you're all enlightened. But if I have to send a support ticket in, or I need help from somebody or whatever, and what they provided me solved the problem, then I let them know, okay, I don't have time at the moment. I'm going to check this. I will check back with you and let you know if I have any other problems. I'll let you know one way or the other. Okay. And if it works, or they provide me, let's say I forgot my password, right? And sometimes I have to send something into customer support. It's not automated, right? So they send me this reply and whatnot, and they at least get a thank you. I appreciate it. So I'm not letting them hang. Okay. I, as a martial arts teacher, should not have to cover this. This is basic mommy etiquette. And if mommy didn't teach this, somebody should have along the way. And I hope that I'm not surrounded. I know I'm not surrounded by. Right? I'm singing to the choir here. You guys all know this, right? But I swear to God, I'm going to punch the next person in the face that says, well, I don't show respect to people unless they show it to me first. Okay? Because that person's a dick. Right? Because some people don't show respect because they don't know any better. Some people don't show respect because they're assholes. Okay? But somebody who knows better and doesn't, in my book, they're worse. because showing of respect says more about the person who's showing it than it does about the person who it's being shown to. Because if we only show respect to those we're getting something from, we're never going to change the world. Ever. This shouldn't have been about respect. I apologize. I'll get back off my high horse, low horse, coaster chair, whatever. Right? All right. So, did we get a sound check from anybody?
Yeah, everybody. Well, it looks like
good.
they're on. It sounds
Okay.
good.
Right. Nobody's letting us hang. Like, all right, I'm just going to talk for an hour or so, 2 hours, and we're just going to. I won't know that this recorded until afterwards, and then we go, shit, it didn't record, which has happened, right? We've had live Zoom classes that they were supposed to auto record and whatnot, and I missed it, or we missed it, and shit. And then, it shows you Whistler says in times like that, well, guess they should have shown him for class. He's the one who looks like he's a mild-mannered, he's the guy that everybody wants to go to his class, but he's the one who'll tell you that, well, I guess you should have fucking come to class. Anyway. All right, so let's take a look at this three-headed Hydra, so to speak, right? This three-pronged problem thing of getting lost when it comes to self-defense, right? And this shows up in three different ways, right? The first one is the most obvious, okay? And this is the person who sees something happen, right? I ended up with two teenagers a bunch of years ago, right? They were early stages. We're talking, wow, somewhere between 89 and 91, something like that. Two teenagers coming to watch class, and they eventually signed up. All went on to get their black belts. One of them now is, God, he's probably 15th on in and of his own right. But we got to chatting, and I said, what made you come in? And they admitted that they were at a party the previous weekend, and they were in the bathroom. I guess they went to a school dance or something like that, and went into the lavatory, and they walked in on some guy getting the shit beat out of him. This was not a fight. This was somebody who drugged somebody else into the lavatory in the high school bathroom and was literally just beating the shit out of him, right? And they had to admit, well, they didn't have to, but they did, right? They admitted to freezing. And then this guy realized that they were there, stopped beating on them, looked at these two and said, tell anybody, I'll do the same thing to you, and yanked open the door between them, bumping them out of the way, and ran out, right? And they said they talked for days afterwards, and the biggest thing that bothered them was they had no idea what to do. Not only did they freeze, and not run, not stay or whatever, but part of that freezing was they had no clue, not only how to protect themselves, but how to help somebody that was being attacked. And that's what drove them to training. They never wanted to have that feeling ever again. Okay, but the elephant in the room for a lot of folks who come to self-defense training, now staying is a whole different matter, right? Because anybody can show up for a class. The elephant in the room is the reason that people come to training for self-defense is they witness something, they see it in the news, or they just come to this realization, right, out of nowhere, I guess, that danger exists in the world and it can touch them or touch somebody that they care about, and they don't want to not know what to do. Okay, so that's the easy part, right? But this is a really, really important piece. This is critical, right? Because, and we all know it. Again, I was singing to the choir. How many people have you bumped into in the world that you might have mentioned that you do martial arts or you do self-defense or whatever, and in some form, in some format, right? Could be nonverbal dismissal, could be a grunt, could be eye rolling, or they could actually literally say, Why the hell do you need that? Like, what are you afraid of? Or that's the job of the police or whatever, right? This is so important that in the big overarching framework for the at least the the white belt to first degree black belt phase of training, right? We call it phase 1 of the training out of 4 phases. And this is not, don't confuse this with modules. Okay, this is the first 5 modules. It's stage 1. Okay, this framework that we have, the 8 phases of effective self-defense strategy and training. It's a training model, and it's also a proactive response framework that allows you to, one, see self-defense in a broader or deeper way than just the physical techniques. Because I promise you, if shit gets to physical, you got the greatest chances of things going wrong or going sideways, right? No matter how good you are, right? I mean, I'm a Daishihan, so I'm 15 plus, but I could be ill that day. I could step on something and slip. They could get the jump, whatever, right? I mean, ego likes to wrap itself up and feel all comfortable and whatever. But the reality is, if shit goes to phase 6, and this truth is not, this is not Daishihan Miller's opinion. What is my opinion? But it's also backed up by a teaching in the Togakure school of ninjutsu. And that teaching is, if a ninja has to draw a sword, he's already lost. What that means is, right, one, you're in deep shit, right? But you've been detected. And again, a lot of people, that ninjutsu's out of reach because they need for everybody to know that they're the guy, they're the tough one. Look how many notches I have in my belt, that kind of thing, right? But that's not the way the ninja works. James and I were talking about this earlier. Remember that conversation, James? Where everybody's got this idea of this lone ninja. As a matter of fact, we were talking about a video that somebody in the Bujinkan had put out based on a conversation with Hatsumi Sensei. There's other people involved, and somebody made reference that they don't need to be the center of attention. They're fat, they're old, they're fat, whatever. Hatsumi Sensei said there were fat ninja, right? I mean, who are you going to be? Who are you going to be keeping your eyes on if you're worried about being attacked by somebody? The 20-something that's ripped and has killer eyes, or the chubby guy who doesn't look like they can do anything, right? And that's why the best spies are ugly, they're out of shape, right? They dress geeky, or they look like they're clueless, right? It's like that Columbo kind of thing for people old enough to know who I'm talking about, right? Or that character, what was that one TV show, Monk, right? Where they're just, they look like they're broken. They look like they can't even freaking dress themselves. And, so, right? That's what it means to be invisible in the eyes of the enemy, right? So, anyway, James had the suggestion we should try to find that clip, and then we'll share it in some form so everybody can see it. But, it shocked a lot of people. Hatsumi Sensei saying, "What do you mean? There were fat ninja?" Well, duh. Okay. I had somebody take a hiatus. I was also telling James this earlier. There's this guy Nick, and I don't know, a bunch of numbers after his freaking vague name, right? I don't know who he is, because he hides behind no profile picture and no description, no videos, whatever. Anyway, I made it reference in a previous Whiteboard Wednesday. It was not about him, but it was about a whole bunch of people like him, right? That I said, can you believe that these people, because every time I put out something, they've got to jump on and make shitty ass comments, right? Which is just funny because the algorithms don't know the difference between a nice comment and a bad comment. So, right, the computer programs just go, oh, people like this and they're engaging. Let's show it to more people, right? But I made this reference that, can you believe it? These people, they must have no life because they actually take time out of their day, out of their week, to watch the episode so that they can then leave a dumbass comment. And he disappeared for a while, so maybe it was coincidence. But I posted something on my community board on YouTube. Some of you might have seen it. It was about people hating you merely because you're benefiting from the fruits of your labor, basically, right? The stuff they won't do, whatever, right? And I admitted, right? This was something that came across my feed, and I tweaked it just a little bit toward the end because I thought it was missing something, and I, adjusted it based on the way I would say it, and to the degree that I would say it. And so, let people know if I'm sharing something that somebody else made, here it is, right? And so he finally popped back on, and he goes, of course you tweaked it. You're the biggest narcissist that I know. And by the way, you're not a ninja. Now, I'm still toying with the idea as to whether I'm going to respond or not. But Nick, if you're listening, Nick, it sounds like I'm talking to, like, I don't know, 4-year-old. Nick, come here, Nick. Anyway, sorry, I'm being a dick at the moment. Anyway, so my first urge was to go, Nick, where have you been, dude? I've missed you, right? I didn't have all my likes and comments and stuff that, for the algorithm. But when it comes to I'm not a ninja, if you mean gaining, right, like the field operative and whatnot, absolutely. My age, my gut, my hips, my knees, my wall climbing days are over. Okay. But out of all the possible types of ninja, right, besides Chunin and Jonin, right, out of all the possible types of ninja that are listening to the Bansen Chukai, which of those am I not? Because there's a bunch of them that I'm not, right? I'm not a Gaiden anymore, right? If I ever was, right? But which am I not? And this is something you all need to think about when somebody pulls this, you're not a ninja bullshit, because you got weight or you got age or you got, whatever, right? One, screw them, because they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And why would you have a conversation with somebody that is a cripple, right? Not having a conversation with these people any more than I'd have a conversation about the workings of an internal combustion engine with my almost 5-year-old grandson. He's going to come up with all kinds of crazy fucking ideas. But what it ultimately comes down to is he doesn't know, right? So I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to go, well, you know what? That's a really good idea. Could you hand Grandpa that screwdriver right there? That'd be awesome. Thanks, buddy. You're such a big help. Okay? I've watched Hatsumi Sensei do that. Big old smile. Oh, yes, you understand. Pat people on the head. Holy shit. Really? Anyway, so, but in this framework, right, this is part of phase 1, right? This 8 phases of effective, for the corporate world, you guys might have seen it as my PX8 system, which is just phases times 8. But apparently they like acronyms, so swing. There you go. Right. So anyway, in phase 1, it's general awareness, but that's not the awareness that most people think of. Most people think of situational awareness, right, which is phase 2, right? Phase 1 is acknowledging that danger exists in the world and it can fucking touch you, right? And it also includes the different types or different faces that they could have, the different shapes it could take, the different types of scenarios, whatever, right? This is the phase where research takes place, and it informs the rest of the phases, because this is the phase that tells me what I better be working on, what I better be training in, right? And what I better be worried about, okay? Now, are you going to get it all right up front? No, of course not, right? Part and parcel of that is what a teacher is for. They're going to go, oh, okay, that's the only fight you've ever been in? Great. Okay, well, you're good at that. However, what about this one? Oh, well, okay, how about if we work on that? Okay. So, but that's part of it, right? It's acknowledging that this happens, but it's what types of attacks? what are possible, right? What things are possible. So phase one is general awareness, but that general awareness will move through all the phases because awareness never leaves. But then that general awareness is going to grow into specific awareness of problems, attacks, attacker psychology, all kinds of things, right? And of course, types of techniques, types of skills. I didn't know I could do that with my body. I didn't know you could do that to another person's body. Those kind of things, right? It will expand, okay? But one of the big things up front is, and it's what brings people to training. Now, we can often forget that piece because maybe the thing that brought us to martial arts in the early days was not self-defense. Maybe in the early days it was, I want to be MMA champion. I want to be world taekwondo champion. I want to be the badass on the block. I want whatever. So it had nothing to do with self-defense or self-preservation. It had to be be for something else. So maybe that one never hit, but for a lot of people it absolutely does. Okay, 9 out of 10 people that come to my dojo in today's world not looking to be a fighter. Okay, so they're lost in the from the perspective that they don't know what to do. They have certain ideas about how somebody might attack, or worst of all, they could just have this vague, like, I don't know what to do if somebody attacks me. Okay, well, let's start with, what types of attacks are you worried about? Because, well, I'm just worried about being attacked. Well, shit. By what? Grizzly bear? Right? Rabid meerkat? I mean, whatever, right? We've got, you got to get specific, right? So, but they feel lost because they don't even know where they would start. Like my 2 teenage students from years ago. These guys are off in the world and have their own families and whatnot. So we're talking a long time ago. I think I already told you, right? Give or take about 1990. It's a long time ago. Can't wait for Alzheimer's. Just yesterday. Anyway, I'm not making fun, right? I'm just, greatest thing about Alzheimer's is you make new and interesting people, or you meet new and interesting people every day. You don't even have to leave the damn house. Right? Can't wait for that day. Right? I'll be not pissed off at people, and they'll all be like new meetings and first day friends, and I made a new friend today. And that'll be my wife, making breakfast for you for 27 years. Right? Really? Well, you're a nice lady. I should curb my jokes because James is drinking in the background. Not anything hard, I don't think, unless you count Mountain Dew as hard. Is that Mountain Dew? It's always Mountain Dew, isn't it? Okay. Mountain Dew. Sorry. Anyway, all right. So the first feeling of lost is the person who they come to martial arts training or self-defense program or whatever because they don't know. Okay. The second type that people have told me about is they have training. They've learned a lot, but they're afraid that they won't know what to do, which technique, when shit actually happens. Okay? They're afraid that they will experience what is commonly known as paralysis through analysis, right? They've got all these options, but they won't know what to do. And that's a product of no experiential training, no training drills, no work, or they don't know it's been happening, right? Where it's getting into muscle memory, those kind of things, right? Where they're not doing pressure drills and things like that, where they have to learn how to intuitively create the solution on the fly based on what's coming at them, right? So often it happens because they have done a lot of work on the technique side of training, but not a lot on the randori side of training. Okay. And so what we've done in our program, and a lot of these things I borrowed from teachers I was lucky enough to, this is going to sound odd, I was lucky enough to choose. Okay. Now, part of that is I'm tenacious, and I just have this thing that if I'm going to train with anybody, I'm going to train with the best that I can find and afford in my realm, and I'm going to go to them, right? If I can't bring them to me, or they're not living near me, I'm going to go do that. But in the beginning, I only knew what I knew based on books or articles, and we didn't even have videos then, right? Going to a seminar here or there. I didn't know a lot about these things. All I knew about was the lessons that they taught me up to that point, right? And so it wasn't until after I got with these teachers that, like, I was introduced to all kinds of things, different training approaches, different ways to break things out, the reality of training, right? Shoshi Malmstrom used to always remind us, right? The dojo is not the street, right? And your training is not the fight, right? So the best that we can do is come up with different drills and different ways to practice and whatnot, and not just always just do techniques, but different ways to do it so that we can hint at or simulate pockets of an actual violent attack, right? Because we're not going to just go apeshit on our partner like we would on the street, right? And even guys that are the tough guys, they know that, which is why the mouth guards go in, the gloves go on, whatever, right? I mean, they're doing the best they can with what they have, but either way, we're getting away from the knuckles and stuff. So we have drills where we will do the counter strikes at speed and at intensity, but the partner is going to have some foam on, or we're going to have a glove on, or whatever, because we need to practice that not soft training stuff, right? But at the same time, not send our training partner to the hospital or whatever, which has happened, and not intentionally, not because we were being unsafe or being tough guys or whatever, right, James? I mean, it's happened, right? So James knows. A couple of my students know, and it is what it is. But we can hint at these things to make sure that we get what we need, right? Because we need to lessen that feeling of, I've got all this stuff, and here's this person, but which technique? Which one do I do? Right? So they're not lost when they're describing this thing. It's not like the new guy that comes in, experienced that or heard the news story, like my teenagers experienced that violence right in front of them or whatever, where they come in and in that moment, they're absolutely feeling lost, right? I saw this happen and I had to admit to myself, I have no fucking idea how to handle this. I need help, right? I need you to teach me something. This person, right? They're not feeling lost now. They're afraid, they're concerned, they're anxious. Use whatever word is nice enough that ego will accept, right? That in the moment, when the defecation is hitting the ventilation, so to speak, right? That they're going to get stuck. They're going to be lost. They're not going to know of all these things, of all this training they've done, of all these skills, of all these techniques that they know. Their biggest concern is they're not going to know what to do. And this is a valid concern, right? I know it may not seem like it to some people, but this is a really valid concern, because in the world of psychology, you never want to give somebody more than 3 options. If you give somebody more than 3 options, you never only want to give them one, because now the person feels like they know they're being told what to do. Okay, you never want to give them 0 options, because then they'll just do whatever. Okay, this is in Sun Tzu's Art of War. Okay, 2 options. There's a dilemma. Do I do this one? Do I do this one? Whatever. Okay. At 3 options, they feel like they have freedom, but they don't feel like they're bogged down with too many. If you go beyond 3, the person runs into paralysis through analysis, right? Which is why when I do things like when I do well, the programs in the dojo are laid out this way too, but this happens more often when I'm doing something with like a corporate client, okay? And I go in and I do an assessment, they pay for me to come in, look over the procedures, look over their workplace violence training, if it even fucking exists, whatever, right? And I go through their workspaces, their departments, that kind of stuff. I look at the flow of traffic, egress, people coming in, going out, whatever they have, right? And then I'll do up a proposal to help them, move forward, right? Well, I don't give them 3 random options. What I do is I build out, like, here's everything, right? Here's everything. I'll have all this stuff in place for you within the next 6 months, unless they're a really big corporation, like when I helped like Nissan North America. Holy shit, they were all over the place. But just in Smyrna, there were a bunch of buildings. So, but anyway, I build out, here's everything, right? And then I'll strip some things away that could wait, okay? Or that would be nice, but they're not necessary, right? And then, so I've got this mid-level option. And then what I do is I go bare bones, okay? So I don't have a budget mid-level and really expensive option just because of money thing. That's no. It's 1, what can they afford? 2, what do they have time for? And 3, what do they feel comfortable with, right? But they all include this core piece. And then the next one is this core piece with these other things that will reinforce that, like training on top. So the core piece might be physical security upgrade, right? And then the next part will be physical security upgrade with training, so employees know why, and they understand how it ties into their own safety, right? And then number 3, so it grows. So what they're picking from is how much do they want wrapped around the same thing. Okay, it's not like walking into a martial arts school and they go, okay, so do you want option A is Taekwondo, option B is Krav Maga, and option 3 is Ninjutsu. For most people, they have no fucking idea, because to them it's all karate, or what's the most common word now? It's all MMA, right? Well, MMA, because my brother's sister's cousin's uncle's brother's college roommate said that was best. Okay, great. Which is why one of my first questions is, what do you want to get out of this? What's your big concern? Okay, so anyway, right, they've got all this stuff, but they're concerned. I'm going to drop the word afraid, because martial artists and warriors are never afraid, which is bullshit. However, right, so they've got this, right? So what we need are ways for them to be able to use a skill or a skill set that's critical. It's both in the self-development realm and it's in the survival realm. Critical thinking is in there, but the ability to make decisions under pressure is critical. Okay? And so there's also intuitive thinking and things like that is not a left brain logical thing. Okay? So we can use drills and exercises to identify and hone these things, so that, right, we have this adaptability, right? Where we're actually borrowing from our consciousness and our conceptualization faculties, right? The ability to make something new out of the parts of things that we already have. Right? It's like the inventor mind, right? So that's 2 of them, right? And then the third one is the person who, they know how they are under pressure. They know how they respond when their wife or significant other, right, is having a bad day, right? Or they're confronted with whatever form of conflict, right? And they tend to go into escape mode, or they tend to appease or do whatever they need to shut that down, because um, the 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 state of overwhelm, right? When there's a challenge or conflict, right? Um, it causes them to literally freeze up, right? Uh, in the adrenal response, most people know about fight or flight, but it's not fight or flight; it's fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, and that's not just physical, right? The brain can literally lock up. The person can be in a state of shock and awe, of overwhelm, and so now this is not the same as uh, the second guy, where their thing is, you know, analysis paralysis. Their thing is not knowing, of all the skills I have, which ones, what will be best right now. They don't know how to assess and apply. Okay, this person is afraid that when the shit hits the fan, they're just going to freeze up. Their brain's going to go blank, and this is not a sense of not knowing. It's a sense of just not being able to function, right? Being this kind of lost. Um, in Mikyo, in meditation, we would call it a type of suspension, but this is not like meditative suspension where you let go of thoughts and you're in the moment and that kind of thing, right? Which is the void state on the mandala. It's the negative state of void. Negative void is duh, right? It's not suspension of thought for clarity and an experience of integration and oneness, like we're all all in a party and we're all laughing at the same jokes, and we lose track of, I mean, we know that I'm here and my friend's right there and whatnot, but we're all laughing at the same things. We're all, you know, we're at a show and there's a comedian and everybody's just laughing, and they're laughing at the same things at the same time. There's this sense of oneness, right, that's going on. It's not that. Right? It's absolutely not that. Right? This is a sense of, duh, like the person is, they're stuck. Right? There is nothing. Right? It's very, very different. Right? Often people will confuse Zen mind when I talk about that with being this empty. Well, they say empty your cup. It's not what they're talking about, dude. It's using words to point to something that words are not going to convey. Right? But it's not empty as in non-attachment. It's not empty as in devoid of preferences, shapes, and things like that, where you are open to whatever happens so that you can respond to that specific thing. Right? In this case, it's a term they used in the military for this, in between the terms shell shock and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, was something like operational shutdown. Okay, where the system just literally just backfired on itself and the person, right? Sometimes they call it a nervous breakdown, whatever, where the person is non-functional, right? They can't operate. Sometimes they physically collapse. Other times they just stand there and stare. There's that 1,000-mile stare kind of thing, or they're just vibrating. The body's just vibrating. They're shaking in place, right? They're making guttural sounds and whatnot. But for all that energy, it's just scattered. There's nothing, right? That's lost, right, in the moment. It's just very, very different, right? So that kind of thing needs to be dealt with early on with conditioning training. And I don't mean exercise conditioning. I mean getting yourself conditioned to having somebody in a blind rage in front of you, somebody yelling and screaming, somebody throwing shit at you, right? It's what allows baseball pitchers to throw fucking 100-mile-an-hour fastballs from whoever picked it up in the field to the baseman that is going to try to catch this runner and get him out, right? And these players, right? They just stick out a glove, catch it, toss it in the other hand, fire it off in another direction, right? You got this freaking hard rock flying at you at give or take 100 miles an hour, and they catch it out of the air like it's no big thing and send it on its way. That is conditioned to that kind of experience and environment, okay? So that's not something that soft training is going to allow for. That's right. I mean, the person has to be conditioned to lots of things. Shit being thrown at you, right? And somebody grabbing and yanking you around, your metabolism changing, your adrenal state changing, right? The heart rate is different. There's pounding in your ears because you can hear the sound of your own blood or your own heart beating based on the blood flowing through, right? There might be ringing in your ears. Things might be brighter because of the oxygenation or the change in oxygen to carbon dioxide. All kinds of shit going on, right? There's an altered state, right? This has to be worked through so that the person is comfortable in that moment. Doesn't mean that fear's not going on. It doesn't mean that there isn't excitement or anxiousness or whatever. That's part of that altered state. But there's a counterbalancing sense of calmness that allows for function, that allows for functionality. There is not operational shutdown. There's operation from an altered state. But the altered state has to be created to some extent in training so that the body and mind can acclimate to being able to operate under that kind of pressure. It's the same kind of stuff that cops go through, EMTs, and not necessarily during their training phases, right? First couple of weeks or months on the street, that'll change shit, okay? And so, but this comes with a sense of desensitization, okay? Desensitization. So again, three different types of lost, right? But at the same time, they point to three different needs when it comes to training, right? They're all in the same scope, the same realm, right? But they're at different points in time. One is way up front, right? The other two are in the moment, but the person has the concern, the fear, right? In the first case, the fear is right there part and parcel with the lost, with the not knowing. But the other two, one knows how they are in given situations. But here's the thing too, Shoshi Molstrom used to talk about this a lot, and Natsumi Sensei's mentioned it as well. We can surprise ourselves, right? Somebody could be absolutely conflict averse and they find themselves in a life-threatening situation and they just act, right? They don't know why, right? They act out of character. You could have other people, and I experienced these people, right? That during training, they're the gung-ho, tough guy, whatever, and then they're in the real shit, and that's what they're doing in their pants. I experienced that when I helped to rescue some medical students and get some shit cleared up on a tiny little island called Grenada a bunch of years ago. Right? All these fuckers that were running around during training, kill a commie for mommy, and run, barking like dogs and shit like that, crying like fucking babies on the airplane on the way down. Right? One shot a cow on guard duty. The cow didn't respond to his halt, who goes there. It was rustling around. It was at nighttime and it was rustling around in the bush. So, I mean, I guess better safe than sorry, but then he had to put up with everybody walking past him after that going, moo. So, you understand, man? I do understand. I understand. We're all fucking terrified. We could all die in an instant. Okay? What I also understand is you were one of the barking dogs during training, and you were one of the John Waynes running around. trying to prove to everybody how tough you are. Here you are doing this kind of shit. And you're more terrified than everybody else. They're scared, on edge, and vigilant. And there's pissing yourself because the facade dropped and you're not the person that you convinced everybody that you were. Not you guys, again, you're enlightened, okay? But it is what it is. Anyway, so 3 types of lost. Now, I've mentioned a bunch of things that a teacher could give you that you could lead through. We've got all these things in our curriculum. But there's a model as well. It's a 4-phase model. I've mentioned this on other episodes before, so if you've heard this before, I apologize. I got to catch everybody else up who didn't hear it. James has heard this stuff how many times? You think after 217 minus 68. Well, you weren't on at 68. What episode did you jump on? Don't remember. It's like an old long marriage. I don't fucking remember, but it's been too long. All right, maybe marriage wasn't a good word, okay? Because he's not going to like this next statement. If I ever lean in that direction, never forget. What is it, James? See, he's laughing already. You guys can't see. Well, maybe you can't see it, right? I'm the boy. Anyways. Anyway, all right. So, but before we jump into that, I do have an admin announcement, and but who's on now? And any questions, comments, complaints, and broad shoulders, and a block button.
The only comment that I see is from Jeffrey. He said, after shell shock came battle fatigue and then operational exhaustion.
That's it. Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate it. Yeah. But it was all the same thing. And, there was a direct correlation between the number of syllables in the words or in what it was called to how long it took for guys to get treatment. When it was called shell shock, 2 syllables, it was freaking obvious, right? Guys were coming off the lines and getting treatment just like that. As the number of syllables went up, right? Shell shock, battle fatigue, we just doubled the syllables, right? Took longer. Operational exhaustion, right? That took longer. Post-traumatic stress disorder. It takes guys a long time to get diagnosed with this. We should go back to shell shock. But the reason why the terms changed was because they sounded too rough. They sounded too, well, no shit. We just came off a freaking battlefield. We were killing each other. Yeah. Okay. Shell shock. Shit was blowing up around us. I watched my friend go down. I watched a head explode. I went, yeah, no shit. Really? We're going to nicify this stuff? It's the reason you don't go to war. It's the reason you don't, you don't get into pissing contests with the guys on the other side of the fence. And then your thing was, well, we're going to have a civil war. Well, from somebody who's been there, they need to shut the fuck up, because that needs to be the last option. And because it's going to be the problem with that option is not just that it's him or me kind of thing, but guess what? Whoever won, they didn't have to have the right ideology. They just had to win. So you're going to get stuck with whatever. Anyway. So obviously I'm not a big fan of, consensual fisticuffs just to prove a point. You know what? Here's $5. Buy yourself a beer. You're right. Have a nice day. Because you know what? I got a lot of nice shit that I don't want to lose or give up, and I'm not ready to die yet. So anyway, all right. So that was it.
And Victor just put in, I still can't remember most of my time at the World Trade Center.
There you go. Absolutely. Coincidentally, and I may have mentioned this in the past, so I apologize to anybody that heard it before. In my alter ego guys, workplace violence consultant. Sometimes I'm hired by the attorney who's representing the employee who got injured, right? And so part of the services that I offer is I review depositions. So this person is brought in and basically interrogated by the other side's lawyer, right? They're trying to trip you up, trying to, make you look bad, make you look whatever, right? And so one time I got this deposition to review, and the lawyer really thought that shit, their client was going to be in a sling. And I said, let me take a look, right? So I'm reading through this thing, and so I call back, and she goes, "How bad is it?" I said, "It's not bad. There's certain things that I look for." Like, he asked her specifically, how long did the attack occur? And she was all over the place with numbers, but what she really had to admit was, I don't know, right? I don't know. And she goes, I know. If we can't pin it down, if she can't be specific, I said, she was traumatized. There's no way in hell she can be specific, right? Here's how you tell the difference between somebody who's bullshitting and making something up, including their wartime service, and somebody who was in an actual traumatic situation. Time distortion. They don't know how long it lasts. Details are missing because everything went to gross motor function and gross psychological function. And I don't mean nasty, I mean big survival mechanisms. So your training has to take that into account, right? Most people's training does not include accounting for flinch response and initiating your movement when your body is signaling which way to go, which is why we teach from the Godai perspective, which is, a bunch of people think it's all bullshit and stuff, which is, covered it last week, right? And then our 4th of July got in the way. So tomorrow night's class, right? If you didn't sign up for it already, tomorrow night's class is answering this idea of fighting like the wind, right? And again, people get all like jacked about it and stuff, right? But your body does certain things physiologically under certain emotional stressors. And so part of what we're doing is going to be around that. Other parts are going to be around strategic thinking and manipulating this guy, other parts around tactical operation, that kind of stuff, right? But this flinch response is a huge thing, right? And so, how many people practice to not move to avoid the incoming strike or whatever until their body starts moving? Because when your body starts moving, there's that core of you, right? Body, mind, core is sure it's going to get hit. So it starts taking evasive action, right? Because if you don't practice at least sometimes with that, how the hell is your body, your muscle memory going to learn what to do in an oh shit moment response? Most people train controlled by left brain logic. But what the fuck are you going to do when left brain takes a vacation and goes, you know what? I'll be back when you get this all sorted out. Okay? This is all part of real world stuff. Okay? So anyway, speaking of real world, okay, admin announcements. So we got a couple of seminars coming up. Again, just a quick blurb here. For the women, right, we have a 4-week, I call it ladies' night out, right? It's one night a week. I think it's going to be Wednesdays from 7 to 9 for 4 weeks. We have a ladies' night out, women's self-defense course. And it's going to cover basic response modes and all that. But every week 1 is foundational stuff, basic evasion, those kind of things. But the subsequent, the following classes, each class will focus on an attack type or attack scenario. Like one of those class sessions will be defending and escaping from really bad positions. Okay. Which is why I always ask women when they sign up, they get a questionnaire, right? Have you ever been assaulted? Right? And a lot will cover it up, but I ask them, please be honest, right? You don't have to give me the details, but I need to know who's potentially triggered in my class. Because if we end up in a situation where they're doing fine, but then all of a sudden the attack scenario that we're doing is way too fucking close to the one that they were in, they can think that they've recovered from the trauma, and it can come. And I've had women on the floor screaming and shaking in place and seeing their attacker on top of them again in class. Okay. And afterwards, after we got calmed down and stuff, that's what they admitted to. They thought that they were over it, so they answered no on the questionnaire. But that scenario, which what we're covering are the most common attack scenarios. So we have mats that will stack up to the size of like a table or the trunk or hood of a car, and we'll be defending from a bent over, face down, piked position kind of thing, or on the floor, face down, back down, just because that's what people need to train for. These are the most common attack scenarios. Okay? Not the, for everything, I'm just going to step back, block, and kick him in the Johnson. We cover that as well. And what kind of a fallacy that is. Not a phallic, but a fallacy. Okay? Different. Google that. Anyway, so so if that coming up, that's in September, I think. Is that September, James? September. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 4 weeks in September. In between there, right, August 3rd, we have an introduction to the katana sword. It's a seminar at the school, seminar, workshop, something like that. We'll be posting this stuff up by the end of this week. All these things will be up and people can get involved. That'll have a virtual option as well as being live at the academy. We have an introduction to defensive combat handgun. It's a level 0 kind of thing. I mean, it takes somebody from I have a gun, I can shoot, and but I want to be able to use it so I can not die when somebody comes at me. Okay, so this is not level 1 is we have response timed response drills that start in that, and level 1 is where the pressure starts. Right, we induce pressure into that training. Level 2, more pressure, less time in the time drills, which means you have less time to get the muzzle on target and get the round off. Evasion, that actually starts in level 1 as well. Combat reload, all kinds of procedures, all kinds of stuff like that. But in level 0, it's for folks that they're either new to it or like new to guns in general, but they know they need it. They just, again, we're in character number 1. I don't even know where to start. Okay, so everything from how to select a handgun that fits you, and this has nothing to do with fucking caliber. And nothing pisses me off more than a bunch of women showing up to a seminar like this, and their man gave them a gun and goes, "Here's the one that you need," and it's too big for their hand. They can't even operate it because it's too big for them. It's right. So the conditions, I allay a bunch of fears, like it's in my purse, and what's to keep a lipstick from making it go off, or all kinds of things, right? And then there's range time as well. So the sword thing is August 3rd. The handgun thing is August 24th. September, we have the women's thing that's going on. And then November, there'll probably be something in October as well. But November, what's that? Is that 8th to the 10th, James? 8th, 9th, and 10th, I think, is our fall camp. It's going to seem later in the year, but this is normally when we had it pre-COVID. We did it earlier because it ended up being a Japan recap seminar a couple of times. And but we pushed it back into November. And so the theme is body, mind, spirit integration. So we're going to be working a lot of this stuff from 3 different perspectives. Like, for instance, when I do a technique, we're going to be looking at it from the physical aspects. Then we're going to be looking at it from the strategic perspective, right? What is this doing to control the bubble? And then we're going to be looking at it from a tactical aspect, right? Sometimes those two will go together, but how does doing this a certain way make it easier to do the next thing? And then we're also going to be looking at from an I'm going to need a bunch of words for this: spiritual, emotional, energy, intuitive side, right? How to put the right juice in there, how to do this when certain internal conditions are going on. Okay, so that'll be a pretty cool weekend. I have emails going out this week to folks that I'm going to be inviting to do breakout sessions and whatnot. So hopefully a couple of these guys will be nice enough to donate their time and knowledge and whatnot and help to round things out. But again, all this stuff will be up, and then the last one that I have as a date is out in January of 25, which is our yearly Daikomyosai. That is the weekend of the 10th, 11th, and 12th. That's normally the first weekend after the New Year, but the New Year this year is on a freaking Wednesday, and I'm just thinking that most people are just going to extend their holiday with family out through the weekend, so we just pushed it back to the second weekend. So it's the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and I'll have details about that as well. I'm playing around with a couple of themes at the moment. I don't have one specific yet, but by the end of the week, there'll be one. Okay, so there's that. And then the last thing is, for those of you who've been studying the Mikyo side of things and all that, I am putting everything together now for the next program, which will probably fire up here in, not this week, maybe next week, but within the next week or two. And it's on these characters and potentials that are normally called Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But again, I have to be careful about who I say those things around, because people think I'm going to, like, I don't know, make them convert to another religion or something. But it's for those of you who are on the Mikyo path. This is a natural next step after the Goshinbo, or you could do this first and then the Goshinbo afterwards. They're really interchangeable in this practice. So this will be a 15-week course, and we're going to be going through an entire practice, but also the individual parts. There are 13 of these so-called characters, and they represent different aspects along the path to mastery, regardless of whether you're doing it on the enlightenment side of things, or you're doing it in the martial arts realm, or any part of life, right? It's an actual logical path from exposure to teacher to lessons to there's this whole thing that was figured out a long time ago. So that'll be the next thing. The course itself, the practice that comes from, is called the Sadhana of the 13 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. It's very instrumental in Mikyo, both in the Shingon and the Tendai realms that I was initiated into. But it is a 13 phase, stage, step, whatever. It's the path, right, to enlightenment in whatever realm you're looking at. And there's a bunch of other parts to it. So we're going to be looking at both the practice and each of these potentials from 3 different perspectives. There's that goddamn 3 again. Just keeps showing up, doesn't it? So, but anyway, so if you have gone through the other programs and you're interested in this, please send me an email so that I know that you're at least interested, because I have to limit this one, just like I did with the Goshinbo one. I have to limit this, and I need to know how many of my guys that are, and girls that are already on the path want in. And like, if you tell me that you're interested, that's one thing. If you tell me that you're definitely going to be doing it, that's a whole other thing, because I'm going to need to reserve those spots out of the number of spots that I actually offer out to everybody on the general list. Okay. So, and again, this is going to be another one of those closed door things that once we get started, you can't get in late. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I have. Right. So that's the admin things. Right. So any other things pop up, James, before I move on to phase 2 here?
Terrence just said the concept about operational exhaustion was a new one I haven't heard of. I've been in that state of dysregulation. I recall freezing.
Yeah, you can't think straight. You can't process things. This is that state. Now, here's something that people need to think about. And again, this needs to be integrated into training. right? When we think about scenarios, it's the fight didn't start where the kata starts, and it didn't end where the kata ends. It's an ideal, but it's a training model. Okay. That thing that we're talking about, that shell shock, that shock and awe, whatever you want to call it, right, might not happen up front. It might not happen up front, right? But you got your bells rung a couple of times, right? You dropped this guy, right? But a knife, a gun, whatever came at you, whatever, right? And you did something, but now you're at the end of it and you're stuck. And what if somebody else is coming? What if you need to get your family out of there, but now you can't think straight? You need to make decisions. You need to go to work the next day, right? Unless you're working for one of these companies that, you know, understand and you can take 15 years off and still get paid, kind of thing. And I'm not lying. There's a bunch of companies that have people on workers' comp or whatever that are getting paid, but can't work. So they should be glad they live in, you know, this country and this structure that sucks and doesn't give them enough extra free stuff. So anyway, just me and my warrior mind and mouth throwing out bullshit. Anyway, so, but it can happen that way. Okay. I know it can happen that way because I and several people that took the 5th Dan test ended up in this state afterwards. We're getting things done, like we're taking paperwork and I hear you talking, but you're asking me a question, you're looking for an answer. So part of me's on and everything is functioning and I'm getting where I need to go. But emotionally, I'm stuck. Like, I don't know how I feel mentally. Okay. For instance, past mine, we're all released because we're going to have a banquet dinner that night or whatever, right? I come walking out, and my wife at the time, she said, she was so excited, right? Because somebody told her that I passed. And she goes, "So you passed?" And I went, at least this is what I was told. I went, yeah. And she said, "Well, aren't you excited?" And I said, I either said, "I don't know," or I'm not sure. And she was completely thrown off because she couldn't understand it. And what I do remember saying is, "I don't know, but I'm going to go to the room and change for dinner. And I'll be back." And that's what I did. And it took, I mean, the next morning I could train. I was able to do some techniques and stuff like that. It wasn't like I was lost that way, but I was stuck in a non-emotional. I probably wasn't in problem-solving mode. It's really difficult to explain. The left brain was not firing on all cylinders, but when it came to training and, you know, watching a technique, my partner throwing some, it was all intuitive. It was all just, right? The flow was there. It was all good. So never quite sure how this stuff can kind of work out. It's also like the second guy that I talked about, being lost, okay, where it might not be up front, right? Where this guy's all set up and he's okay, and you get some insights about what's going on, and he throws something, right? And he throws these things, and you're just on, right? And then all of a sudden you hit this thing where he does something or you do something, where you get in this thing where the bodies lock up for a second, and all of a sudden you don't know what to do next, right? James, we've done that in class, yeah, where I tell intermediate students or whatever, at this point, the moment you have that brain freeze or that sense of, I don't know what to do next, we give them a bailout. The bailout is, you go to Kamai. I don't care which one, go to Kamai. Okay, it resets the system and you'll know what to do next, because one, you will have disengaged yourself from a situation where you're about to get slammed because you may not know what you're doing or what to do next, but that doesn't stop him from not knowing what to do next. And just because your partner's nice enough to freeze doesn't mean the asshole in the street's going to do it. Okay? But we go to Kamai for multiple reasons. One, it moves us to a safe position. Two, it disengages us from that stuck moment. And three, I have been in that Kamai dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of times. I will instantly know what to do next because I'm now in a position of comfort or what would you call that? A position of knowing, right? I've been there before, right? The reason why you didn't know in that other one could have been because I haven't been here before and I don't know what to do next. So if I bail, reset, I've been, and if you go to Kamai, it's the reason why Kamai need to be drilled over and over and over again, right? Because it becomes the base of operations, it becomes your position of safety, right? But you've been there and it's a reset position. Did I just give 3 different reasons to go to freaking Kamai? God damn it, I have to stop doing that, right? Live in the teachings. Who came up with this shit anyway? So, right? So, but again, these things might not happen up front. Again, perception is everything, right? And so ego likes to believe that, well, that's not me, because like every time I've been in situations like that, I've known. Yeah, I know, but what if he does something unexpected? What if your foot slips out from under you? What if you are innocent? And for an instant, and all it takes is an instant for him to jack you one more time and screw up the operator up here, and right, your life for however long it's going to last is never going to be the same again. Right? These are conditions that we think about in survival situations, or when we're preparing for survival situations, not necessarily when we're preparing for a rule-laden contest. And I know how that ruffles people's feathers, but I don't give a shit. Doesn't make it any less true. You can not believe in gravity, but it doesn't mean it's not going to yank you to the ground if you slip. Not liking something, not believing in something, does nothing to negate that thing's reality or existence. And the more things we can know about, the more things we can prepare for. The more things we can prepare for, the less chances we're going to be in a situation that we have never experienced. It's one of the reasons why every once in a while we do a training drill where your partner throws different types of punches. They just creatively make shit up, or they throw something they've seen before or whatever. And then you change partners and that partner throws, right? And you just practice Kamai evasion. You practice Kamai evasion with Uke Nagash, whatever. But the point is to get to a tipping point where the chances of an attacker on the street throwing a punch, a kick, a grab, whatever, right, that you have never seen, never dealt with, never neutralized. It's not that it's impossible. It just gets really fucking difficult for somebody to throw something you've never seen before. Okay? And that just makes a huge, huge difference. Anyway, let me get back to this thing, right? 4-stage framework. Okay? So, know up front that this works. Lots of people use it. Okay? So if you're a do-it-yourselfer, I'm giving you a 4-point framework. Okay? You could luck out and not need this as much. You could not need all 4, right, for very long, or not at all. You might, just need parts 1 to 3. Okay? You might do parts 1 and 2 and realize, maybe I do need a teacher or whatever. Okay, so here are the parts, really, really quickly. Okay, I got this from a teacher a long time ago, and they were perfectly fine with people going off and doing their own thing. Here is a surefire framework for developing self-defense skills. It's used by thugs, it's used by gangbangers, it's used by street assailants, right? It's used by, right? You might have already used it and didn't know it. But here we go. Stage 1, right? Locate 1 or more areas where people of a different lifestyle or demeanor, typically life's not going so well for them, right? Tend to hang out. A bar will do. Okay. 2, engage this person in negative dialogue, negative conversation, right? In a way that will induce a psycho-emotional state that will lead or has a high degree of probability of leading toward violence. Call their mom a name, right? Isolate one of the drunks in there, call their mom a name, whatever, right? Just get yourself involved in things. Stage 3, do the best you can to deal with what's coming at you, right? And do the best you can at throwing things at them, okay? Until you no longer have to, right? Or can't, right? You either won or lost, okay? Stage 4, if applicable, check out of the hospital and continue to run stages 1 through 4 until stage 4 is no longer necessary. That is the do-it-yourselfer kind of thing. Now, can you augment with YouTube videos? Sure. Can you augment with things like this? Sure. Okay. But don't fool yourself, because you didn't work it out on your own. You found other people to demonstrate things. We all do. Okay. The question is do you want to be guided, or do you want to figure it out for yourself? That's the difference. Okay. If you run that 4-part framework that I just ran, as funny as it may sound to some people, you'll eventually figure it out, or die trying, but you'll eventually figure it out. Okay. Question is, how long will it take? Okay. So I think on the bookends then were, at the beginning, we talked about 3 types of instructors, right, that you might want to consider when you're vetting them. Because if you're just looking to learn a martial art, doesn't matter which one you choose. Okay. If you're looking to learn a martial art from somebody who understands the fight bubble, and you think you're pretty intuitive that you can apply what you've learned in that bubble, right? Great. The number 2 will do. Okay. But if you want to be damn sure, because the person that you're learning from has actually used the stuff that they're teaching you against really violent people, okay, and survived, that's a big one, then maybe 1 and 2 won't do. But again, right, that was on the front end. On the back end, do-it-yourselfer, lots of ways to do this. People do it all the time. I would highly recommend that you don't if other people count on you. You're married, you got a family, you got kids, whatever, that depend on you, that kind of thing. That's kind of risky, right? It's not so risky for somebody who's single, nothing to lose, that kind of thing. But it'll still do it. It'll still do the job. Okay. Anyway, that's what I have for this one. So James, my trusty sidekick, brother from another mother, also called a mother some days. He and I are both waiting for Mother's Day cards, because we've been called mothers at different times in our lives and still are regularly. So anyway, what do we have? Questions, comments? James looks like he's trying to sort out somebody took you, in your own words, a little too literally.
My system's freezing up again.
Ah, shit.
Victor has a question. What are your thoughts that the reason we go through memory loss is to protect the inner integrity of the mind?
Yeah. One of the things that I learned along the way with my study with ego, both on the science side, which both Hatsumi Sensei and Reverend Jikai were both big on, as well as my discussions with Reverend Jikai. He was a really smart guy. He was a university professor, did a whole bunch of study on the science side. And so ego serves multiple functions, right? Now, we're not talking about the id, right? So identity. But besides maintaining a snapshot of who you are and what you are and that kind of thing, right? One of the things that ego is responsible for is protecting you from harm including reliving something again, past trauma. Okay, so one of the reasons why we can't remember a lot of things below the ages of like 5, 6, that kind of thing, is because as a little kid that was uncoordinated and trying to figure out how to move around in clothes and navigate the world and all that, we fell down and banged into shit a whole lot. Can you imagine how much trauma we'd be carrying if we remembered falling at the floor and all that kind of stuff? The number of times that a baby does those things, we never give it any thought, right? But yeah, one of the things that that ego does is protect us from reliving that trauma. Okay, and that's why visualization training can be tricky, because we have to be careful. One, we've got to get good at it, and two, we need to be able to detach emotionally and see it kind of as an image, right? We need to disconnect from the I'm actually in the moment, because the visceral system, when things get stored in subconscious storehouse, the Alaya Vijnana, when it gets stored, it's not just the it is all the data, but it's not just what you saw and what you heard and that kind of stuff, right? It's what you felt as well, your emotional state, the sensations and all that kind of stuff, the trauma to the system, that gets registered as well. Okay, in Mikyo, a lot of these things are called I can't remember the Sanskrit. I've got to look this stuff up again. It translates to stinking or smelly seed, and what it means is it's in there and it's just waiting for the right conditions, just like any seed that's been planted, right? That seed could have been planted in an acorn or whatever last year. Ground froze over, all kinds of stuff, but when the temperature, the moisture, the aeration, the nutrients and whatnot of the soil, when those conditions are just right, that seed will germinate. And that's why these things are called this. We have a lifetime of these things, right? Heartbreaks, injuries, all kinds of things that in the full enlightenment process that Mikyo does, you have to ferret this stuff out and cook off the karma. You have to let it go, right? Because until you do, these things are like the war is over, but the field is still loaded with landmines, and you could fucking step on one at any time. Okay, and when these things happen, and one of the reasons for ferreting them out, I mean, we can ignore them, right, and hope it never happens, which is what the masses do, right? But for those of us on this path, the reason for ferreting them out is we know that they will germinate, right? They will flower, right? Whatever, okay? They will bloom when the conditions are right. Accidentally or intentionally, doesn't matter. And this is how relationships change or collapse. This is how jobs are lost. This is how somebody gets distracted in the moment that an attack is happening, and they like learned all their shit, and they're ready to, and all of a sudden something happens and it distracts them, or they have this experience or whatever, or their system shuts down, and next thing you know, they're waking up in the morgue. Right? It's one of my funny little statements students laugh at in the dojo, where I say, screw this up, you're going to wake up dead. Right? Which makes no sense, right? Lots of people woke up dead this morning, so they couldn't enjoy life. Anyway, so, but yes, yeah, the short answer is, yeah, absolutely. But you know better. You're a smart guy. Stop asking me questions you already know the answer to. Thanks for helping with value for everybody else. That's why I always ask. Well, I don't always, but Victor did like 2 breakout sessions. Was it spring camp? When was he here last? I don't know. Dacomio site last year, maybe. Did too. People had a good time because he came across as somebody who looks like he knows what he's talking about. Okay? It all worked out. Anyway. I might actually ask him again. Actually, I will. Victor, will you marry me? No, I mean, will you do a breakout session? What else we got, James? James is going to do a breakout session.
Terrence said
People glitches online. Sorry, what?
Terrence said negative void is an interesting concept that resonated with me.
Yeah, negative void is ignorance. It's duh. It's not knowing any better, or it's not knowing. Right? All of the elements have a positive and a negative state, and there's colors that associate with them. There's a positive color that represents the element, and there is a negative color, all except for void. There's no color for negative void. It's the absence of color. There's nothing there, right? It's kind of like, what's his name? Who's that comedian? Oh, shit. Now he's dead. I'm having a hell of a time with him. Who's the word guy? I had the 7 dirty words you couldn't say on TV. Now that I remember, but I'm glitching on his name. Shit. Somebody will know. Anyway. Sorry. When his name comes back, maybe I'll remember what I was going to say. Anyway, what else do we have?
That's all I see.
That's all you see. All right. Okay. Well, in that case, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I don't want to keep you guys any longer, right? I'm sure you've got, dreams to do and things to see, or something like that, right? I used to say, I've got things to see and people to do, that kind of thing. James isn't laughing anymore. Shit must still be freezing up on his side.
It was George Carlin.
George Carlin. There you go. That's it. Right? That's it. Yeah. Anyway, really good stuff. So, all right. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. So hopefully I'll see you guys at some of the upcoming trainings. If not, at the very least, I will see you next time on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.